From Henniker, New Hampshire to across the country, we travel to Ventura, California as we learn more about Patagonia, one of the most environmentally friendly companies in the world.
The creator of Patagonia, Ivan Chouinard, was born in 1938. Chouinard and his friends grew up rock climbing during their adolescent years. When Chouinard had to fend for himself, he started off by selling more durable rock climbing tools to anyone that would purchase them from him. He later found himself selling climbing gear out of the back of his trunk. Chouinard was scraping pennies together and had to purchase a large quantity of canned cat food at a damaged canned tuna outlet in San Francisco just to survive for a year. Chouinard and his friends could even be labeled as homeless because they would stay and hide in places they rock climbed for weeks on end. This would exceed the normal 2-week camping limit. Even though he sold gear out of the back of his car from time to time, in 1965, Chouinard formed a partnership with a fellow climber, Tom Frost. Business for the partnership started to take off, and in 1970, Chouinard Equipment became the largest supplier of climbing gear in the United States. Chouinard faced his first environmental challenge as soon as his business started to take off. The equipment him and his partner were selling was extremely damaging to the rocks. The rocks that the climbers climbed were enduring severe disfiguration and fragile cracks from the repeated hammering of the pitons that had to be constantly replaced or removed in order to successfully climb any structure was causing the damage. Through it was a huge risk. Chouinard and Frost slowly left the piton business for the good of the environment. In 1972, Chouinard took his first environmental initiative by releasing an article in his first equipment catalog that tried to persuade fellow climbers from using the damaging pitons. The article persuaded people to use aluminum chocks instead because they could be wedged into the rocks opposed to being hammered in like the pitons. The climber who wrote the article described climbing the rocks with chocks as a cleaner climb. Shortly after the catalog was released, the piton business declined, and the demand for the newly promoted chocks exceeded the supply. Chouinard slowly became involved in the clothing business after his success with the chocks. All climbing gear at the time was very dull colored, mainly gray. Chouinard would often wear a stripe-colored rugby shirt on his climbs and would get approached by strangers asking where they could purchase a shirt like his. Chouinard then began ordering rugby shirts from New Zealand, Argentina, and came to the realization that selling clothes would be extremely beneficial to complement his marginally profitable hardware business. On top of selling rugby shirts, the company soon began selling rain goggles made out of polyurethane, Baroque sacks, oiled wool gloves and mittens, hand-knit reversible hats, and shortly after, the company decided to add clothes to their repertoire. They soon coined the name Patagonia for their new clothing line, because it sounded like a faraway, distant place. In 1980, Patagonia created insulating long underwear made of polypropylene for its water-absorbent qualities. Patagonia even believes that it introduced the outdoor community about layering your clothing. In 1991, however, the company hit a bump in the road. Patagonia's rapid growth came to a screeching halt due to the recession. The bankers that backed up the company forced Patagonia to pay its revolving loan. Paying the debt forced Patagonia to cut its costs and dump its inventory. Patagonia ended up laying off 20% of its workforce. When Patagonia started becoming proactive in helping the environment, it was still a small company. Patagonia noticed pollution, deforestation slowly starting to add up, as well as fish and wildlife disappearing. They also noticed that sequoias over 1,000 years old were starting to die due to the enormous amounts of smog being produced in LA. The employees of Patagonia realized that even though the environmental challenges required unwavering persistence, they believed that they could restore the environment with time and patience. When Patagonia started becoming proactive in helping the environment, it was still a small company. Patagonia noticed pollution, deforestation slowly starting to add up, as well as fish and wildlife disappearing. They also noticed that sequoias over 1,000 years old were starting to die due to the enormous amounts of smog being produced in LA. The employees of Patagonia realized that even though the environmental challenges required unwavering persistence, they believed that they could restore the environment with time and patience.
It is no secret that America needs more farmers, but we need the tools to be successful.
Revolutions start from the bottom.
In fall 14, we had 11 fair trade certified styles. In fall 16, we're going to be at 200. And in fall 17, we're going to be at 300 styles, and that's 30% of our product line.
In the early 70s, Patagonia began giving to smaller groups that were trying to save and restore the environment rather than giving to NGOs with large staffs and corporate connections. In 1986, Patagonia started to donate 10% of its profits every year to grassroots groups. Later, the company changed their donations to 1% of all sales or 10% of profits, whichever one was greater, and created the first national environment campaign to de-urbanize Yosemite Valley. The company took a position against globalization of trade when it means compromising labor and environmental standards. The company also supported wildland projects aimed at preserving ecosystems and allowing wildlife to roam. To help grassroots gain more followers and influence, Patagonia has held marketing and skills seminars every 18 months to help groups they work with. In 1988, they began to reduce their role as a corporate polluter. To help grassroots organizations gain more members and influence, Patagonia would hold marketing and skills seminars every 18 months to help groups they work with. In 1988, they began to reduce their role as a corporate polluter and have been using recycled content paper for their catalogs ever since. The company works with Meldon Mills to develop recycled polyester for use in their sinkhill as fleece. Since the early 90s, Patagonia has made environmental responsibility an element of everyone's jobs. In 1996, the company opened a distribution center in Reno and achieved 60% reduction in energy use through solar tracking, skylights, and radiant heating. The company also used recycled content in rebar carpet and partitions between the urinals. Patagonia had a feeling that its fibers that they were using were not environmentally friendly, and even hired an independent research company to view the 4 major fibers. The natural fiber Patagonia used in most of their sportswear turned out to be the most harmful of all fibers studied. They also found out that 25% of all toxic pesticides used in agricultural use in the cultivation of cotton resulted in pollution of soil and water. It also discovered evidence of damage to the health of its field workers. In 1994, Patagonia decided to make its sportswear 100% organic by 1996. They decided to allow themselves 18 months to make the switch for all 66 products and 4 months to line up the fabric. They hit a bump in the road when they discovered that there wasn't enough organic cotton that was being grown commercially to supply their demands, but they avoided the conflict by reaching out to farmers who went back to growing organic cotton. Since 1996, every item has been 100% grown from organic cotton. It employs over 2,000 people. Their headquarters is located in Ventura, California. The company has been around for 40 years and is only 10 years shy of a 50-year longevity like North Face. The company is liked because of its repair is a radical act, which ensures people that their clothes will never go to waste because they can donate their clothes or have them repaired. Today, Patagonia has a net worth of over $1 billion.
That's passion, and this one's right here. That's passion. This one's right here, and that's a passion. That one's right there. I don't know how the holes got in it, but the feathers were coming out of it.
Our family has been on this farm for 80 years now, and we hang on to things. That definitely holds true for the gear we use and the clothes we wear. I want my kids to know when something breaks, the first thought is, how do I fix it, not how do I get a new one. Our farm is Studio Hill. We're a holistic, pasture-raised farm where we do sheep, chickens, turkeys, and pigs.
All day, every day, we're out here working, and our minds are 4 generations down the road. We're thinking about all the things we can pass forward. If you're able to find something that works, you stick with it. The things that last stay here, you know, especially when it's tied to one place, one piece of land. There are pictures in the house of my wife's grandparents and great-grandparents, and we're still wearing their clothes today.
What we're trying to do is just rebuild for the long haul and for generations that aren't even here yet. The gear we use is absolutely a part of that. We expect stuff to get stained and torn, and you just go on fixing it, patching it, and letting it get used, show its use. It's part of the life it has. This is Izzy's go-to jacket. It was passed down through a bunch of kids out in Idaho, and I'm sure it's got more life beyond the next kid too. I grew up wearing this stuff, and it just stands the test of time. We don't believe in just consuming stuff and throwing it away. We want it to be meaningful, to have real use, and to last as long as physically possible. The only way to teach these values is to live them.
Patagonia has taken giant leaps in becoming one of the most environmentally friendly companies on the planet. Patagonia believes that a love of the wild and beautiful places demands them to participate in the fight to save them, and to help reverse the steep decline in the overall environmental health of our planet. Throughout the years, they have dedicated time, services, as well as 1% of their sales to grassroots environmental groups all over the world.
I can be a pretty cynical guy. The one thing that really keeps me going are these wild places that are the real soul of this country. A great part of my life, I've been climbing and fishing and hunting on public lands. I've been a successful businessman because of the lessons I learned in the outdoors. My business was built on having wild places. Public lands have never been more threatened than right now, because you have a few self-serving politicians that want to sell them off and make money. Behind the politicians are the energy companies and the big corporations that want to use up those natural resources. It's just greed. This belongs to us. This belongs to all of the people in America. It's our heritage. I hope my kids and grandkids will have the same experiences that I have. Our Secretary of the Interior, Zinke, has said he believes in public lands. Let's hold him to it. Let's not let him back down on that.